Hello, and thank you for joining us this week on Calvary Conversations podcast. It's our new podcast here at Calvary Church, and we're really honored that you take time out of your week to join us for these conversations. It's designed just to be conversational among our church leaders here about topics that are relevant to today for you and your family. Trust that it's a blessing to you. If it is a blessing to you, would you just hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you can be aware of what's going on, and that it would also be just a real blessing to us if you would do that. It would help us out, and we trust that our content will be a blessing and help you out as well. This podcast airs every week, Friday nights at 6 p.m., and just check back here regularly, and you'll find things that'll be a real encouragement to you. Today's conversation is going to be with Pastor Trevor, our youth pastor here at Calvary. We're really blessed and honored to have him and his wife, Lindsay, leading our youth ministry here. And we have been highlighting the different generational ministries here at Calvary, and I'm really thankful that Calvary is a multi-generational church.
Amen.
And I think it really kind of always has been, but over the last 3 years or so, we've kind of really focused on it. We have brought on a senior adult pastor in the last 2 years. We have always had a youth ministry, but we've seen that grow and increase over the last few years. We've just recently added a young adults pastor. We have a new children's pastor. So we're really focusing on that multi-generational. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but specifically about youth or student ministry today. And I want to just give Pastor Trevor a chance to introduce himself, tell us about you and Lindsay, and just go for it.
Yeah. So first, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited to share about youth ministry. A little bit about myself. I pretty much grew up in this church my whole life. Moved here from New York when I was about 6 years old, and then I've been at this church ever since. I'm 23 now. So it's crazy to see how God has like kept me here. And now I'm like the youth pastor here, me and my wife, Lindsay. And I went to Southeastern University. A lot of you know exactly where that is, there in Lakeland, Florida. I played football there for about 2 years, and then it got expensive. It got expensive, and I ended up coming home and getting just a job and just kind of trusting the Lord and seeing where he takes me, and
ended up married.
Yeah, I got married, and I got married at 21 years old. Me and my wife are going to be married 2 years now, June 1st. So our anniversary is coming up. So it's just crazy to see God work, and not to give me credit, but to give him all the glory that says, man, without him, I don't know where I'd be. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm just excited to, be on the podcast today and talk to you guys about youth ministry and what our vision here is at Calvary Youth and stuff like that. So I just thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And so also you were kind of mentored by our former youth pastor, Rich Strocia.
Yes.
And he served faithfully for several years here as the youth pastor. And he kind of brought you up and helped you through some really challenging times in your life.
Yes.
And then kind of released you into ministry over the last year or so here at Calvary.
Yeah, Pastor Rich, I mean, I tell people, I told the youth 2 Wednesdays ago, I said, if there's ever a person you need in your life, it's Pastor Rich, because he was always there. And that's one thing that I love about him, is that he's available to help, to talk, even if you just want to call him and complain. I know that sounds bad, but like if you just want to vent to him, he's like, listen, I'm all ears for you. So he's just been a real blessing to me.
I have his cell number here. Should I share that publicly so everybody can just call and vent to Pastor? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. That leads me into kind of just a comment I wanted to make about multi-generational ministry. And that is that mentors are vitally important,
of course,
in our life, in our discipleship process, in our spiritual growth. And I think that is why it is so important, and it's not just mentorship, it is relationship. It is important for youth to have senior adults, and for senior adults to have youth, and every bracket of age is in between. Like we need each other.
Exactly.
I say it all the time. It's kind of a cliche, but I still like it. We're better together.
Of course.
And while we have specifically geared ministry towards students and elementary and nursery, even toddler age, and then senior adults and young adults, we have geared, ministry geared towards those age brackets. We are at our best, I believe, when we are functioning in gatherings that we're able to fellowship together, work together, minister to each other. And so the individual ministries prepare us for that gathering together.
Right.
And I have been blessed. I said it last week with Pastor Joe. That is like senior adults speaking into my life. I need that. Like I go and sit with them intentionally. I want their wisdom. I want their experience. And they need younger people. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I still consider myself younger. So they need us to speak into their life, like to encourage them, to let them know we need them. Right. And it's just really powerful. So multi-generational ministry is powerful and wonderful. So let's just dive into some questions here and talk about youth specifically.
Awesome.
And I want to talk about the mission and the vision of Calvary Youth.
I got you.
And what it looks like, and what you think it looks like, and like what you're imparting to our youth right now for that.
So my wife and I, we like to say this, and it's pretty much what we've adopted as our like kind of mission statement. And it's a whole generation exposed to Christ as he really is. And I mentioned and really emphasize that last part, as he really is, because the purpose of Calvary Youth is to set that standard. Who is Christ and who is he to us, right? And so in the concept of, and the kind of the vehicle of youth ministry and what our students go through on a day-to-day basis, we want to really set that standard of not letting culture, the worldly culture that we live in, because there's a lot of pressure on our students and our kids nowadays to kind of conform into this cookie cutter. This is who you're supposed to be. And they're in their very vulnerable years of figuring out who they're supposed to be, but more so emphasizing that, hey, not letting culture define who Christ is or a student's viewpoint of who Christ is, but we're going to dive into what the word says about who Christ is and what Christ says about who we are. So that's really our mission, is a whole generation exposed to Christ as he really is. So letting the students know who he really is for them, and then going out and exposing him to the whole generation, whether it's in their schools, whether it's in the grocery store, whether they're going out to eat with their friends, or even sometimes in some cases to their own families. They can be a light. So that's really what we want to impart to them is, man, Jesus is real and he wants to use you. So,
Amen. And he does. He is, and he does.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. For sure. I love that. And our culture really is, I think, working overtime. It seems like to try to define maybe not specifically who Jesus is, but how we should interpret like a worldview of religion, of God, of whatever, and they're working to conform us, and that mission and that vision you're sharing is so powerful, and thank you for doing that, and we, I think, as a church have to, if I can say this just as a pastor, as a lead pastor, and then thinking about all of our ministries, we've got to do that collectively,
of course,
to make sure that our students have what they need, both that you as a youth pastor have what you need to make that happen, and that they have what they need to be able to go out and do what you're trying to empower them to do. So that we support them in prayer, we support them in fundraising. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but the things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, like there's events, there's functions that they do. Those all help them become the kind of people, the kind of person you're talking about. And it's contingent on us doing our part to help get them there and to make them better. So it really does take all of us.
It does.
We're better together.
Yes,
so with that in mind and that mission in mind, what does youth ministry look like at Calvary, and why do we need specific youth ministry at Calvary Assembly of God?
So I think that the students, and just like the age that they're in, they need something that they can take ownership of. I really believe that, because it's funny, even speaking, like I purposely intentionally don't say the word kids, because when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a kid. You wanted to be older. And so I like to say students. So I wanted to take ownership of my life and myself and that. So, but as far as the ministry goes, we have adult service on Wednesday nights, but we really want to have a place where the students can feel like they can express themselves, that they can worship and have other students around them. They can joke when they want to joke, but really more so that they feel comfortable to open up to the Spirit and to what the Lord's doing in a service. A lot of times, I know that when I was a youth, I'd be in the main sanctuary and be like, man, this is intimidating. I see all these adults like on fire. They're worshiping, they're raising their hands. Some people were running around the stage, like just when the Spirit moves, things happen in people, and it was a little bit intimidating. And not that we don't want that in the youth service, but we want them to feel like, hey, this is who Christ is, and this is what he can do in you and in our services. So, I mean, we have worship geared to them. We have the word geared to them, and really just, hey, this is your spot. This is your spot here at Calvary, and this is your youth group. I like to say that to them. Yes, I'm the youth pastor, but hey, if there's anything you need, anything you want, let me know. This is your group. Take ownership of it, and because if you don't take ownership of it, you'll never really put in, you won't have passion for it. You won't get involved as much as you should, and I think that we need that, especially in the culture today as students. Generation Z, it's like everything's technological. We can't have a one-on-one conversation like you and I've noticed that a little bit, but we want to create that environment here that they can open up and just express themselves and talk and share their issues, share what's going on in their lives, share their victories with us. And, that's pretty much the main thing.
And you do that like in some small group settings too, don't you?
Yeah, we have small groups. Sometimes we go over, book curriculum and stuff like that. We let the kind of Wednesday nights, be more so we're getting into the word, but then when we meet, on other times, it's more like, hey, what's going on in your life? Let's talk about some real things.
And those specific youth gatherings kind of lend themselves to invitational evangelism, because you want to invite your friends to that, maybe more so than to an adult sanctuary service and like that. But what I love about Calvary is that our youth also participate in our adult sanctuary services.
They do.
We, as I keep repeating it, but we are multi-generational. And if you come into our Sunday service, and sometimes like last night, our Wednesday midweek service, you see every age bracket, because we are in there together and we worship together and we flow together, and you come to the altars and you see young people and you see senior adults and you see children and you see everybody. And so our youth don't just, I've gone to churches where like the youth service is the youth service and the sanctuary service is their parents and their grandparents, and you never see the two mixing. And so we do both. And to me, that is what youth ministry should look like. So we have something geared towards them, but it's not just them, it's all of us. So Trevor, what is like some of the top issues, maybe one or two, but specifically maybe the one top issue or issues that students, teenagers, high school, middle school students are facing today in our society, and how can the church in general, but thinking about Calvary Youth specifically, or Calvary Church specifically, how can we help meet that?
So I think there's one major issue, but my answer is going to be kind of twofold here. So I think the main issue right now in the students' lives, and the Generation Z and like millennials and like that, is identity. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it becomes cliche because it's so prominent now. We have things that are trying to push who you're supposed to be. There's gender stuff. There's just all culture, music, everything. And social media is just crazy right now with just stuff that you really would never see 10 years ago or even 5 years ago on, scrolling through your phone.
6 months ago.
Yep. 6 months ago. I mean, it's crazy. So I think the culture is really trying to say, hey, this is who you are. And that's an issue, because God made everyone unique. First of all, he made everyone with a plan and a purpose, and just kind of little bit more detail, I think this issue is twofold, because you can look at two sets of students here. You can look at students that don't know Christ, that aren't believers. And then you can look at students that are in the church, then they know Christ and they are believers, right? Yeah. And I think identity is an issue in both. Here's why. Because I think that in the group of students that are in the church, like I said, Generation Z is probably the most technological advanced generation. I mean, there's people and there's students in our youth group that like they can do crazy things with technology, and I never thought I'd feel old because I'm 23 years old, but they make me feel like, you know, I'm way older than I am.
Wait till you're 49.
Yeah, I know. I'm. It's just crazy, but the issue would be, because they have a lot of talents. They have a lot of, they have a lot of access to things and photography and there's drones now and there's all types of stuff, and they're making movies and videos and all this stuff, and it's good. And these are all gifts and talents that God has given them. But I think the problem lies when the pursuit of the practical gifts become more than this pursuit of the spiritual gifts. Mm-hmm. And when I'm talking in the sense of believers, a lot of times we say, well, how's that going to fit practically to us? I truly believe that the gifts that we're given spiritually are as practical as the ones we can feel tangibly, or the ones we can do something with tangibly. So I think the problem would be, don't substitute the spiritual gifts for the practical ones. Don't think that, you're just gonna, because you're good at photography, you're gonna go be a photographer and never step into the word, never step into, what Christ has for you and what Christ wants you to do for others. So for that group, that I think that would be one thing. And then for the group that, isn't in the church, for the students that don't know Christ yet and stuff like that, it's the same identity. I mean, you can look at the news and just look at all the garbage that's coming through there. I don't recommend it, but you can literally go on there and say, man, what is this world doing? I mean, we're pushing students to literally say, hey, and we don't need to stay on this topic, but hey, you're this gender, or you don't even, if you don't know, you can just kind of mark the box that says, I'm just gender X or whatever, what general neutral or and you see a lot of everyone's the same, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's the same. And you ask yourself, the question is, where's God in all of this? Where is the change? Where is the breakthrough? Where is the victory in all of this? Because you see it from a perspective of a pastor or of a believer, and you say, man, there's so much more than what they think they are. Mm-hmm. in retrospect to students. Sure. And how I think that the church plays the biggest role in that is discipleship. Yeah. When I say discipleship, I don't just mean small groups. I don't just mean coming to church, but I mean, hey, parents, don't just rely on your pastor or your youth pastor or the youth leaders in the church to preach the word. Preach the word in your homes. And encourage your kids to go out and witness. If they're not seeing you do it, then they're definitely not going to do it, because they're wanting to see someone that says, I'm doing this thing. I'm committed. I'm bold enough. I have enough courage to do it. So I think the church really plays a role there, that says that when they need to disciple and say, hey, look, we need to go after this thing. We need to go after Christ, and we need to be the example and disciple these. And not just in the spiritual aspect, but hey, you have a 16-year-old kid that just got a job and he doesn't know how to do anything with his finances. Take him to a bank, have him open up a bank account, and show him what it means to be financially responsible, and just different things like that. We play a role in all aspects of a kid's life or a student's life, more than we know. And if we don't got it together, then they'll never get it together.
And all of our different generational ministries can help impart that. Like, so right. Some adults can help
Right.
Some of our students do that when
Yeah.
they, especially if in our world today,
Exactly.
many, don't have fathers or sometimes any parents
Right.
active in their lives, and so we want to be a church that has ministries, programs in place to do that. I think, and that's part of our vision and our goal. What I hear you saying, Pastor Trevor, is that identity is a huge issue in our world, in the church and outside of the church. I'm just kind of recapping what you said. It was all good. It was really powerful. But what I hear you saying is that the church plays a part both in reaching the world and helping them see that we can have a conversation one day on this podcast about identity issues and like that. That's not what this episode's about. But what I hear you saying is that God will help us find our identity.
Of course.
Every one of us, whether somebody feels they are something different than the way they were born or whatever. And God has a lot to say about that in his word. And we can talk about that one day. But the truth is God will help an unsaved person or a lost person find their identity in him.
Right.
Clearly. And there will be no question of who we are.
Right.
But he will also help. And I think this is so powerful when you said this. He will also help believers because we can all, just with distractions in life, get off on all kinds of little pig trails and lose our identity as to who we are in Christ.
Exactly.
And he will keep us on track if we will stay focused. It's through discipleship. It's through staying plugged in and ministry and like youth ministry in this case that we're talking about to help young people know that your gifts, your talents, the things, and they're going to fine arts this weekend.
Right.
It's a competition to help hone those gifts and talents because the things that they do, everything that we're gifted with is part of our identity in Christ. Like he wants us to use those gifts to minister to the world around us and to reach souls for his kingdom. And so that's powerful. And I think that's a great answer. So thank you for saying that and sharing that. Now, how can the church be more effective? I think we've already kind of touched on this and we're going to kind of start wrapping this up, but how can the church be more effective in reaching students and then discipling students and then mobilizing students for ministry? So what are some things we can do to just be more effective in that?
So I think it starts with, the church pretty much walking it out as an example, doing the things that we preach about and showing the students, hey, this is what it's about. This is what the life of a Christian or a believer is about. And really, taking them along with them. That's why it's so important. Like you said, we are a multi-generational church, and it is important for us to be in the services at the same time in some cases. And, maybe one day it will be to the point where we're always together and we're just experiencing revival and God's Spirit being poured out on us, and we just can't be separated because we all need the same thing in that moment. But it's important for that because we need students to see, hey, they can do it. If they can do it, then I can do it. And we need a lot of. I know I want to shout out the young adults ministry. We need young adults. I mean, a lot of times students look to. I know this sounds kind of like kind of cringy or bad, but a lot of times students will look at an adult and they just like, okay, well, I'll get there one day. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll get there one day. So let's bump down to a kind of a younger generation. Say, hey, my generation, 23-year-olds, 30s, young 30s. Hey, let's show these students what it's about to. What it looks like to be a Christ follower, what it looks like, wherever we go. I think that's the main thing is wherever we go, we need to show Christ. We need to walk it out because whatever you're doing or not doing, the generation behind you is saying, okay, well then that's the standard. That's the standards. Well, if they are preaching it in this service and they're lifting their hands on Sundays and Wednesdays, but then when they go out and they're not doing a single thing, they're not witnessing, they're not discipling, they're not lending what they have to the poor, or they're not doing, things like that Scripture, invites us to do, then they won't do that at all. But once we do that, I'm telling you, it's just going to catch fire because students will think it's cool, right? Sometimes I like to say this to them, and it's, a life of sin is not a prerequisite for a young person. It's not. Like, you don't have to be the typical young person that says, I was addicted from this age because my friends, introduced me to this, and now I found Christ. You can know who you are now and walk it out. God doesn't wait for you to turn 30 to use you. And
that might be the best testimony.
Yeah,
that God kept you from it.
Exactly. And those are
all
the best
great testimonies, but
those are the best testimonies. So I just really think that as we walk it out and make it our culture. It's not even make it our culture. It's more so, this is the way.
It's awesome. Thank you. I'm thinking just like revival. And I know with that term, that word's used a lot, but I get that. But I don't see youth as the church of, and I think this is kind of what you were alluding to earlier. I don't see youth as the church of tomorrow or 10 years from now or something like that. We're not trying to raise them up so that one day they can be board members or one day they can be, Sunday school teachers. I think we want them plugged in right here, right now, and doing what God's called them to do right now, using their gifts, using their talents, doing what, and seeing them release words and operate in the gifts of the Spirit and revival taking place through every age bracket, inclusive of our youth. And so, and I, not to recap it, but just really to continue the answer that you're giving. And that is, let's see revival in our teenagers. Let's see revival in the youth, and let it carry on. In fact, I could see our youth, the youth of this generation, being the catalyst for revival.
Yes.
They're the ones with the energy. They're the ones, if God can get a hold of them and set them ablaze, and he has in times past, and I think he is again, if he can set them ablaze, like, the whole world can be set on fire.
As you say that, I think of, when you're younger, you just want to be older. You want to be able to be independent and have money and, get married one day and have a family. And then when you're older, I'm not there yet, but I kind of am. I definitely sometimes, wish I was just back in high school, just getting good grades and, maybe not, but, getting grades that, people say this, it's kind of funny, but C's do make degrees. I don't encourage that. Please work hard. But when you're older, you just want to be young again, right? And I see that as, like, if the young generation is on fire and then the old generation's on fire, we just want to be on fire. We're looking at the young generation as the older generation and say, man, I want to be like them, and they're on fire. And then the young people are looking at the older generation saying, man, I want to be like them, and they're on fire. And then it just sparks a fire, and it just grows and grows. We do. We
just want fire.
We want it. Yeah. And just equipping these students to go out and change their world.
I'm praying for revival in the church, but I am praying so specifically for Calvary, but for just youth ministry in general, that something would be sparked in this generation of youth, young adults, even children, even our children. And we're going to be talking to Pastor Candace here in the next couple of weeks. But I can just see revival breaking out in elementary students. I can see it breaking out in middle school and high school students and college students. And I think it's going to transform the world in these last days we're living in. And I think that those of us who have gone before are going to just help nurture that and guard that and help in many ways. We're still going to play a huge role in all of that, but they're going to be like, God's going to use them in a powerful way, that younger generation. So I'm praying for that. I'm believing for that. And I think that's why we need youth ministry.
It is.
And we're doing it here at Calvary. So praise God. So to close this time out today, what does youth ministry practically look like at Calvary? And what I mean by that is the where, the when, the how. I know that doesn't apply to everybody that might listen to this podcast, but it certainly applies to those in the Jacksonville area. Yeah. So where do we meet?
Yeah, so if you're in the Jacksonville area, here, Middleburg, Orange Park, Green Cove, Lake Asbury, wherever you're at, we meet here on Wednesday nights here at Calvary at 7 p.m. I encourage students, hey, get here at 6:30. Okay. We have stuff for you. We have games. We have, card games. We have ping pong. We have all this stuff. And we have concessions and stuff like that. But we meet here on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. and we go to about, if I preach short, we go to about 8:30. But if I'm preaching long, hopefully not, but you never know. But if I'm preaching long, sometimes we go to, 8:45, and parents are banging down the doors trying to get their kids. But, we have a good time, and if you're here,
that includes some prayer time and stuff too, doesn't it?
Yeah. So around like 6:30 ish, we do a little pre-service prayer, and we just say, hey, God, come. We invite you. We're available. We're here. So if you're in the area, check us out. We also do other things. We have small group meetings. Once a month we do kind of like a youth outing where we'll go bowling or we'll go, one of the kids wanted to go ice skating, and we haven't done that yet, but we do a lot of fun things.
You go eating.
We go out to eat. After on Wednesday nights, sometimes one of the kids is like, "Yo, where are we going to eat?" And I'm just like, "Well, I guess we're going somewhere." We just got to figure it out right then and there. Usually we go to Culver's or something like that, but we have a good time, and what I want in this is, the pastor of the youth ministry and me and Lindsay really want this to not just be, hey, we just have fun, but hey, we're together, we're one, we're unified, and wherever we go, whether it's Culver's or Splits or, Texas Roadhouse, wherever we go, we get to be a light, and, whatever that means, whatever that looks like, that's what our goal is. And, if you're in the area, please check us out, 7 p.m. We just have a good time.
We do some other cool things too. We do youth camps.
Yeah.
In the summer, we do a youth conference in the fall. We do fine arts competition, which is huge.
Which is today.
They're leaving today, where hundreds of categories, I think, or at least 100 plus categories of different kinds from photography to graphic design to preaching to singing, whatever, musical, whatever.
That's right.
And they compete against thousands of other students, and they go to nationals, and that's an annual event, and that's pretty powerful. And then camps, like I said. So there's a lot of things to get involved in.
There's a lot of things to get involved in. I mean, we have tons of things. This summer is going to be youth camp, and talking to a lot of the students, that is the 1 week throughout 10 years from now that they will say, that week changed my life. Yeah. So we have a lot of cool things coming up here this year. So, come out and join us, be a part.
Hey, I love you, and I thank you. I appreciate you and Lindsay. And thank you for investing in our youth.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Amen.
It's good to be on.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this podcast, and join us each Friday right here at 6 p.m. God bless you. Have a great week.